everybody. A warm welcome to another interview on Wisdom from North. I'm Janneke, and I'm excited to be here with Reea Pawley today. Reea is a mystic, a channeler, a psychotherapist, and a life coach. And she has a personal story of narcissistic abuse. And her life and her training has really made her an expert within this field. And today she's passionate especially about helping women awaken to their inner goddess and to heal their wounds. Now, Reea is also channeling the Egyptian goddess Ma'at, who is the goddess for truth, justice, and harmony. Now, let's meet Reea. Hello, Reea. How are you today? And a warm welcome.
Hi, it's great to be here. I'm really enthusiastic and pleased.
I'm excited to meet you. I went to your website and I read that you're channeling this Egyptian goddess Ma'at. And I've never come across anybody who has done that. So we're going to dive into that. And I'd also love to speak about your work with especially women that have been victims of narcissism and why that is a topic that you're focusing a lot about, and why that is, or why we hear a lot about narcissism these days. But let's first go into Ma'at. Firstly, I didn't know who she was, but then I was Googling her, and she's that goddess with those big wings. And I was like, oh, I've seen her many times. So tell us, who is she and how did you come about channeling her?
Well, you had exactly the same experience that I had, because when I first got the name Ma'at, I had no idea what it meant. I actually majored in history at university, but I'd all my life ignored Egyptian history, and I basically knew nothing about it. And I realised later it was because she didn't want me to know anything about it, because most of the Egyptian history that we learn isn't right. So when I got the word Ma'at, saying that, I had been already connecting with Ma'at for many years before I got that name, but because I'm in Australia, I was calling her Matilda, as in waltzing Matilda. Because I had never heard the name Ma'at before. And when I first got it, I thought, what is that? And I went in and I Googled it. And when I saw who it was, that she was the Egyptian goddess of truth, justice, and harmony, that really resonated with me. I had one of those really overwhelming moments where something out there's happening, because I'd always been someone who was really playing in that whole dynamic of truth, and it was really important to me. And I'd been around a lot of narcissistic personalities in my life. I like to say somehow as a spirit, I enrolled myself in narcissistic training camp from the day I was born. And so truth and the distortion of truth was something that was really important to me. So when I Googled her and I found out who she was, I was thrilled to bits, also a little overcome. I was like, oh, my God, this is a goddess. Little old me can't be connecting with a goddess. But, of course, we're all goddess, all that is. And I realised later, it was a gift, of course, but something we're all capable of. So, yeah, so Ma'at's pretty incredible.
So has she actually lived in Egypt as a human ever? Yeah.
Yeah, good question. I asked that many times, and not just of her, but of other channelers that I spoke with around the world. Every time I got to speak to another channeler, I was like, tell me what you know about Ma'at. She was incarnated, and her and I had lifetimes together. So that's why I developed this connection with her, because I'd been in Egypt so many times. I'd been a priestess in her temples. I'd worshipped her, and she'd actually been on the planet at some point. But eventually Ma'at became Isis. So in the early days of, Old Kingdom Egypt, and even further back than we actually know with our history, she was called the goddess Ma'at because all of the laws that the Egyptian people lived by were all handed down from Ma'at, and they were called the 42 negative confessions. So they predate the Christian 10 commandments, and they're very similar to them. So if you have a look in the Papyrus of Ani, it shows you what those 42 negative confessions are. And when I read them, I was like, wow, if I had to write down how to live a life with grace and, goodwill towards everyone, they're the rules I would live by, right? And again, they really resonated with me. So they believe that the 10 Commandments actually came from those 42 negative confessions of Ma'at. And of course, Ma'at was supposedly she was the daughter of Ra, the sun god, and she was the consort or wife of Thoth, right, which everybody knows about them. And so what happened in Egyptian culture was they lived by these 42 laws of Ma'at, and then when they died, their heart was weighed against Ma'at's feather. So she always wore an ostrich feather on her head, and their heart was weighed on the scales of justice. So that's where the Americans get the scale, our laws get the scales of justice, right, from Ma'at. And if their heart was as light or lighter than Ma'at's feather, they were allowed to go then to what we would know as heaven. And if they had not lived by the 42 laws of Ma'at and had not, lived a life of truth, justice and harmony, then they would have to reincarnate, or they would go to some other place, which we would probably know of as hell.
But is it that judgmental? Like, is that his teaching?
Well, I mean, we were talking about Egypt thousands of years ago. So, this is what they believed, and this is the way they lived. Of course, Ma'at is a very loving goddess now. And when she comes through me, all of her messages are very loving and kind and compassionate and gentle. So, yeah, completely different now. But it's like the Bible. The Bible contains a lot of text that we look at now and think, wow, that's a bit cruel. That's a bit harsh.
Right. So it was more that when she was a human, that was the rules that they lived by. But now she is like a goddess, so she has a wider perspective, I guess.
Well, she was only human in 1 or 2 lifetimes on Earth, and so you can go back, and all of that old Egyptian history, pre-Sumeria and Babylon and everything, and it's all sort of connected way back there with the Anunnaki and all that history. We really don't know a lot about it, right? I mean, everybody's finding out more about it now. I find it fascinating. I think it's terribly interesting. But, really, as far as written history is concerned, we've only got what came down from Sumeria and from Egypt, and so before that, I mean, we're really, pretty on Earth, we really don't understand much of it. So she lived a couple of lifetimes, but then she became a goddess. So there were lots of temples in Egypt built to the goddess Ma'at, temples and shrines, and you see her everywhere painted, on Egyptian pyramids and everything with those, the wings and the feather in her hair. But later on you see Isis looking exactly the same. So that's why Ma'at and Isis kind of cross over at some point in Egyptian history.
And what is her main reason for coming to you right now? Does she have a special message?
Really good question. One I ask frequently. The purpose of her coming right now is because we are going through that shift in consciousness, and I'm a wanderer. So I've been told many times that I'm a really old soul. I mean, I was hanging around with Martin Egypt thousands of years ago, and I've been in Atlantis and all of those other places. And so she's come to help with the shift in consciousness. And of course, the time that I began to channel her, which was about 2006, 2007, I'd been going through a really bad dark night of the soul. So I'd come out of a really narcissistic, abusive relationship with my partner and was just devastated. But I was also at that time working as a life coach, and I'd already studied counselling, and I was doing hypnotherapy and past life regression, and I was working one-on-one with people. And so having her come through, giving me that extra knowledge and wisdom, to answer people's questions and guide them to, a more sovereign place and a place of peace. So that's what she did for me when she came through, and what we helped other people do, and that's what we do now together.
So she's actually helping you in your individual sessions, especially.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. She's not here to speak to, to preach in front of, huge crowds of people. Some of the channelers that are on the planet have come through, like you think Cryon and you think of Abraham and all those really well-known channelers, and they're talking to millions of people all the time. But, if you look around all the channelers on the planet, they all have a different purpose for being here, and they're aimed at a different group of people. And so, Ma'at comes and helps me with my work, and we do one-on-one work with people. So I still do psychotherapy and counselling and all that sort of stuff. Mostly people come to me for channeling and readings and that sort of thing. But, that's just to help them find a place of peace and balance in their lives. So, so Mart really is about helping individuals. I mean, it's not so strange, right? Because if we're talking about the shift in consciousness, we're talking about changing the planet one person at a time. And I often asked, why little old me, and what good am I doing here on the planet just working, with individual people? And she would say to me, but from soul's perspective, from spirit's perspective, every one person that you help, you've done, that's beautiful as far as, spirit is concerned. So it's about helping people one-on-one. And, I used to work, I used to have a lot of male clients when I first started, but over the time, because the more and more connected I became to Mart, the more connected I became to that goddess energy, I attracted more and more women. I still have some male clients who I love and adore, and, they're just fantastic, but mostly I work with women now.
Can you tell a little bit about the way she's teaching? Like, what is her main message? Is it about, truth or justice, or is it about loving ourselves, or what is sort of, if she has like a main teaching that she...
Yeah. Well, the truth, justice and harmony is a really good beginning, and that's why I believe that, I've brought her connection into this lifetime, because, we've all had many, many lifetimes before. And so we've all done many, many things. So, I asked, why am I connecting with her in this lifetime? It was because of that narcissistic training camp that I was talking about, that I've gone through in life, where truth is really distorted in our world right now. And you can see that across all institutions, all government, finances, corporations, education. It doesn't matter, health. It doesn't matter where you look. Truth has been distorted on our planet. And so we're going through this shift in consciousness where all of that darkness is being intensified, right, so that we can really see it, and we can collectively say, no, that's not how we want our world to be. We want our world to be different than that. We want our world to be loving and equal and balanced, where everybody is fed and everybody has a roof over their head and they all get to do work that they love. And, we're supposed to be a civilized society, but look at the world that we're living in. It's heartbreaking to anybody that's, got a spiritual perspective on life. So the truth thing for Mart's really important. So she helps individuals find that truth. And we have self-doubt, and our truth gets distorted. So, most of the people that I see have been through bad relationships or narcissistic relationships, or they're just, on a very spiritual path, and they're really doubting themselves. And to have someone to go to ask what the truth is, where is the fine line of balance and truth that we walk? Because that's hard, right? That's not easy. We have our point of view, and then somebody else says, no, you're wrong, this is the truth. And you go, is it? It's that kind of thing. So just being able to find our own personal truth. And, of course, it's very much about empowering everyone, women in particular, I guess, to tune into their intuition. I mean, we are all going to end up channeling. That's where we're going, right? And so being able to connect to higher wisdom. I'm doing it for people now, but I'm always talking to women about developing their own psychic abilities and their own intuition and tuning into their own wise self. So a lot of our work is helping people to differentiate between their ego voice, their lower self voice, the voice of fear and anxiety, and I'm better than everybody else, or I'm not as good as everybody else, blame, revenge, victimhood, all of that's your ego. Differentiating between that and your wise higher voice, which is the voice of your higher self or your soul, right? So that's a lot of what she's teaching too, teaching people how to do that.
I really believe in that as well. I'm very passionate about people finding their own truth. And you said it beautifully, like connect to their wise selves, because all the conditioning, the way society is built, the way the school system is built, is not really encouraging us to listen within at all. And like you say, it's hard to find the truth. What do I believe? And even in relationship, that becomes so visible. I've also been in an abusive relationship 10 years ago. And it was hard because I thought that I was the one in the wrong. Like I should just get it together. When he was correcting me, or he was actually manipulating me, but I didn't understand that. So I was just thinking that I just need to learn to cut my onion in a better way. Like, because, yeah. And when I came out of it, it was like a shock. Like, how did I manage to get so manipulated? So can you tell us a little bit about how you came about working with women who have been victims of narcissists, and a bit about your story as well, why this is kind of your main body of work?
Yeah, right. So I came from a family that has mental illness or personality disorders in my family. So every family has some burden. To remember, every family is your soul family incarnated here on earth, right? So we always incarnate with other souls that we've been through many lifetimes with, and so soul families always have a thing that they're all working on. And so in all families, you'll see something. You'll see some distortion, right? And in my family, it's personality disorder. So we know now that personality disorders get handed down from one generation to the next. They didn't know that, 20 years ago or 30 years ago when I was becoming an adult. And so now that we know that it's inherited, largely inherited, we can understand it more. So, but trying to understand it and having a difficult childhood, not because, anything necessarily really bad happened to me. I had two very, very loving parents. They really loved me, but they were doing the best that they can. It just wasn't very good, right? And because I came in as this very old soul, awake, aware, noticing everything, reading people really well, I'd hear all these lies and I'd go, no, that's not right. That's not what happened. And I used to get into trouble. My parents used to say to me, oh, you've got a memory like an elephant, as if that was a really bad thing, right? Because I was always like looking for the truth. I became hypervigilant, as a lot of kids who go through childhood trauma become hypervigilant. And because I was an old soul and an empath and very nurturing, right, I was always taking care of everybody. So I had an older brother and a younger sister. My sister was 7 years younger than me. And so I became parenticized and I was the little mother. My mum was, one of those, cooking, gardening, knitting, sewing our clothes, all that sort of stuff. But she wasn't really good at taking care of our emotions because she didn't know how. So that's where I stepped in as an empath. I naturally did that stuff. So then by the time I left home pretty early. I was 17 when I left home because I needed to get away from that. My brother had escaped. My older brother had escaped into the Navy when he was 16. I escaped at 17, telling my mother that I was longing to be a nurse and I had to go to Sydney to become a nurse, which was a long way away from where my parents lived. I didn't really want to be a nurse. I just wanted to get away from home. And so, of course, I flew straight into the arms of a narcissist. And I had two children with him, but I was divorced by the time I was 23 with two small children. And somehow I managed to look after them and myself. I found my way to university at the end of my 20s and was studying psychology. And so I reared my kids, put myself through university. I didn't end up becoming a psychologist. I ended up becoming a high school teacher because I knew I could keep my kids with that. It was long holidays, great pay. I just fell into it. So obviously, spirit had meant for me to go there. And so I taught for 23 years in a high school, to English, history, teaching and careers. And then, but at the end of my time teaching, I got bored. And I needed something else, and that's when I started life coaching. And about that time that I started life coaching, that's when I started connecting with Mart. Like I said, I was in yet another relationship. I went from one narcissist to the next, basically. I had no idea what a healthy relationship looked like. So I was the one holding the fort, as a lot of women do. There's this myth out there that the Gottman Institute actually talks about it in that great book that John Gottman wrote about, men who abuse women. And he said that, there's a myth that women who are abused are weak and, can't take care of themselves. And he said it's an absolute myth, that usually the women that are abused are intelligent and strong, and they're holding their shit together and everybody else's shit together and looking after the kids while they're dealing with this, abusive male. And, it's true of men. I've known a lot of men who've been in abusive relationships too, and they're usually the empathic, nurturing, caring types as well, that hold the fort together. So, went from one narcissistic relationship to the next all the time, like looking for answers. Like, what's going on? I had no idea, really.
Like, what's going on? Why am I attracting this? Or
yes,
kind of.
Yes.
Right.
Well, because you go into a relationship and you think, okay, this isn't right, this is bad. It's not, love isn't supposed to be like this. It's not supposed to be this hard. And I would get out of the relationship. So I was never frightened of being on my own. I left all of my relationships after about 3 or 4 years when it turned bad, and would go off and look after myself and my kids. And it took a few relationships until I went, okay, the common thread here is me. I'm the common thread in all of this. Something's going on. But, of course, no one was talking about narcissism in the 1980s and that's when I was going through all this. We didn't know. And I went in, had lots of therapy, went to psychologists and did all of that. No one could really tell me the story. I had to find my way to the story myself. And finally, in my last relationship, he had bipolar disorder, and he could be very abusive, physically abusive and, emotionally abusive, all of that stuff that narcissists do. They gaslight you and they crazy make you and they use word salad and they intimidate you and, all of that stuff. And finally, it was actually when Mart came in that I finally found the answers, because I used to think he had an anger issue. That's what I called it. Oh, he's got an anger issue. Oh, he's just not very good at conflict resolution. I was buying all these books for him to read and taking him to therapy. Ridiculous now that I look back on it, because, you can't change a narcissist. But I tried. But, it's that thing that women fall into, a lot of women, and you probably did too, you're an empath. So other people's feelings have always been louder than my own. And I'm always trying to make everybody else comfortable and happy. Are you okay? That kind of thing. And, of course, and I had, spiritual beliefs. So I started awakening spiritually after the harmonic convergence in 1987. I was waking up. I was getting into law of attraction and, all of that stuff. And so sometimes those spiritual beliefs can work against you. We call it spiritual bypassing.
Right. Yeah, tell us about that, because that's important, I feel.
Well, I had all these, beliefs. Like, I was teaching law of attraction in 2002 when I first met my partner that had bipolar disorder. He later hung himself. He killed himself. That's how ill he was. But that was after he and I broke up. So I was teaching law of attraction. So I was like, if I just change my own energy, if I just become more loving, if I become, raise my vibration, then this relationship with my soulmate is all going to work out perfectly. So it didn't matter what he did. I didn't put up with his bad behaviour. I was not one of those, doormat types, never. I was pretty bolshy. I would, tell people off about their behaviour pretty quick, smart. Hence I got beaten a lot. But, I just thought, if I just keep working on myself, that's the childhood trauma, the hypervigilance. I got to fix myself in order to be loved. I'm not lovable the way I am. I have to fix myself. And so I got further and further and further into spirituality. He used to be screaming at me, and I would literally sit on the floor with my legs crossed and my hands out like this, going, I'm not fighting with you. I'm not fighting with you. I love you. Everything's going to be okay. And, of course, it's ridiculous, right? Because it doesn't matter, how much you change yourself. By staying in an abusive relationship, you are not loving yourself.
Right. Right. Yeah.
That was the bit I didn't get. I was like, I want to love him more. No. You have to love yourself enough to get out of there. I always say to my clients, if that were your daughter going through that, what would you tell her to do? Well, you'd make her leave, right? You wouldn't let her stay there and be abused.
I think it was a big misunderstanding. I think 20 years ago, or maybe 15 or 10, we did speak a lot about positive thinking, and it was misunderstood. And then this way with the shadow work and the other part of it came forward with the polarity and the light and the dark, and we need the dark, and that's really good because we need that balance. It
Sure.
too much over that one side, and yeah, that can be just as damaging. Like, yeah, I mean, we're here to really be physical beings, like taking action on things, following our sense as well. Doing what's sensible. Like, it does not make sense to stay in an abusive relationship. That is not self-love. So,
Well, at one point after he had badly abused me, physically attacked me in front of my 14-year-old daughter, I had him charged. I called the police. Like I said, I'm no doormat. I called the police. And then I was reading the Conversations with God books. And in the first book, God says, if you let someone abuse you, you're actually abusing them. And I just burst into tears and started crying and had this huge release of guilt because I was feeling really guilty, right? Because I love this person, and I called the police on him and had him charged and had him arrested. And then that was, around that time I started to get it. Like I was enabling him in a sense, like all, partners of alcoholics enable their partners to keep abusing me.
yeah. Oh, you're so right. I mean, it is this interplay between two souls. Like it does, you're not helping them by being a doormat or whatever. Like standing in your power will help them as well. That's what's so beautiful. But how did you finally change that pattern? Because patterns is such an interesting topic. It can be other things as well that we keep attracting again and again, or keep seeing in our lives, and we're like, why is this situation happening again? I just see in my family, they have, or my mom and dad, they have this pattern that they just are experiencing again and again. It's nothing like serious, but I just see it, that they end up in the same situations, and I find it so interesting. And I see it in myself as well. But I find it a bit challenging to really change it. And I've worked a lot with myself, but still I see that there are some situations that keep on happening. And sometimes I feel, okay, so there's more for me to look at. Or it might be that law of polarity, that you actually see the opposite happening before you really have anchored yourself in that new energy and let go of everything you need to let go of. So what's your perspective on that?
Well, yeah, the patterns are hard, but as I say to people, once you learn about narcissistic behavior, what it is, and you understand that the other person either has narcissistic tendencies or at the other end of the extreme, narcissistic personality disorder. So, there's a lot of people with just some narcissistic tendencies, and it's sad for them too, because they've usually been brought up by narcissists. They've usually had childhood trauma, an unsafe environment when they were children, and their narcissism is a response to that. Sometimes it can be inherited, like I said. So it's a kind of, they say that if your parent has a personality disorder, you have a 60% chance of having a personality disorder as well, and that's because of inherited cognitive dysfunction in the brain, childhood trauma, and modelling, right? Like, how do little girls and little boys learn how to be adults? They learn by watching their parents. So all of that gets programmed in there. So you've got to go through the as far as the pattern goes, you've got to unprogram all that. You've got to put different programs in. So it's about knowledge and awareness about narcissism and abusive behaviour and what it looks like, right? And that's not easy because they bamboozle you. They're pretty good at what they do. They love bomb you in the beginning and suck you in until you're madly in love with them, right? She's laughing. She's had that done to her.
Well, I don't know. Like, sometimes I wonder why I've been single for 10 years, after that relationship. Yeah.
I've been single for 10 years too.
Really? Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. My pattern is this, that I know that I was attracted to narcissists. I had 5 relationships, one after the other. pretty much all narcissists of varying degrees. And then when I realised what the pattern was, I was like, okay, not doing that anymore. So my radar became finely attuned to narcissism. And this is what I say, you know, I tell all my clients what the red flags are. Look for the red flags. And so I can spot a narcissist in about 2 minutes now, like energetically, psychically.
What is the red flags? Just for people now who are watching, who is experiencing this or like has a pattern.
Yeah. So the red flags are that they're usually very, very charming. So they notice you and they really look at you. You know, they're shining the light on you and they're seeing you and they're paying attention to everything you say and they're giving you compliments and they're making you feel wonderful. And they've got this, narcissists are often very intelligent, right? So they've got this way of finding out what it is you want to hear. You know, they can read your behaviour well enough to be able to do that, even though they've mostly got no empathy. They can't feel your feelings, but they can read people. You know, they've learned how to cope with the world by being good at that sort of thing. And so, you know, lots of compliments and, you know, telling you you're beautiful and, oh, my God, falling in love with you really quickly, right? And so, you know, we all think, you know, we grew up in all those Hollywood movies where women get swept off their feet, you know, and all that stuff. We're suckers for it. So they're often, and they want to be with you all the time and, you know, they miss you when you're not there and they just love being with you. And, you know, women just lap that stuff up. I mean, the other thing is, you know, and I meant to say this before, you know, Jordan Peterson said that women are much more agreeable than men in their personality style. You know, if you give women that Big Five personality test, women score really highly in agreeability, right? So we laugh at people's jokes and, you know, we've got good manners, we listen to them. So, you know, it's pretty easy to get a woman who's high in agreeability to pay you attention. And then once you've got this girl's attention, then you start giving her attention. Well, you know, we just lap that up. And so, you know, they're some of the red flags. You know, if they're love bombing you in the beginning and they're telling you that they love you really quickly and they want to spend all their time with you and they're projecting into the future really early, oh, you and I are we're going to go overseas. I can see us overseas, you know, having this great holiday. Oh, my God, we're going to build a house and we're going to have 3 kids. And, you know, they're talking about all that stuff really early in the relationship.
So it's basically too much in a sense.
Too much, yeah. And, of course, you know, what they usually do is they love bomb you in the beginning, and it really only takes sort of 6 weeks, 2 months to love bomb a woman like that, and then you start to turn on her. So then you're nasty or you're mean or you say something to demean her, and you suss out how she responds. So if she's very forgiving and, oh, don't worry about it, you were just in a bad mood, you know, make excuses for it sort of thing, and you cop it, well, then it escalates. They know they've got you. Now, the other thing they do is they try and isolate you from all your family and friends. Oh, I love you so much. I don't want you to go out with your girlfriend. Stay with me. I can't. I'm going to miss you so much. And so, you know, you stop spending time with the other people that you love, and they've got you then. You know, so then they start with the gaslighting and the word salad and the
gaslighting. I don't know that expression.
Oh, really? Okay. So it comes from a movie. I'm going to forget who was in the movie. It's a like 1930s or 40s movie with Ingrid Bergman in it and Charles Boyer, I think it was. And he actually made her think she was crazy. Oh. So it's this. It's when you go, oh, look, the sky's blue. And the narcissist says to you, what is wrong with you? The sky's green. Are you mad? Something wrong with you. You need to have your head fixed. Everyone can see the sky's green. And you're standing there going, oh, God, it looks blue to me. And, of course, when someone keeps doing that to you all the time and you love them, right, and they love you so much and they tell you that they're your soulmate and you guys are going to be together forever, like they really hook you in, right, and then they start gaslighting you. And they don't do it all at once. They do it bit by bit. It's the frog in the pot of boiling water sort of thing, you know. You've heard that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have a pot of boiling water and you know the pot's boiling and you put the frog in, he'll jump straight out. But if you put the frog in a cold pot of water and just turn it up gradually, the frog boils to death in the water. And that's what they do to you.
Oh, I feel this is painful to speak about, but it's important to speak about. It's very important because I didn't know, like when I was in that relationship. But when you're talking about the red flags, it's like, oh yeah, like after 4 months, it was that first thing where he said something, corrected me in front of everybody, and it was just horrible. And I had no idea what was going on. I was in shock. Like, how can he say that? I was just like speechless. But like you said, I was like, okay, maybe this was a one-time happening, and then slowly but surely it got worse and worse. Gladly I got out after not too long of a time, but yeah. But for me, it hasn't been a pattern. Like I've never experienced it before. It was like this one-time happening, but.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's a really good point to make. Women come to me and they say, what is wrong with me? Why am I attracting narcissists all the time? And they may have had 5 relationships and only 2 narcissists, right? Except the last one was a narcissist, so they're still, recovering from narcissistic abuse. And I say to them, well, it's not necessarily a pattern. If you're a woman and you're highly agreeable and you're empathic and you're kind, right, and forgiving, you're meat for the narcissist. They love women like that, So, it's not necessarily that it's a pattern. In my case, it was a pattern because it was all I knew, right? And so I didn't know what a healthy relationship looked like or how I was supposed to be treated. And so in those cases, it's like the traumatic environment that you get into with a narcissist is very familiar and comfortable because it's familiar. I mean, that might sound odd, but that's the truth of it. Oh, I know this energy. I can work with this energy. I know what this feels like. Yeah, I can do this. And so you're recreating the energy of your childhood home, basically.
Yeah, this is so interesting. And that we see that in other situations as well, that we recreate what we know, even though it's unhealthy, but it feels like more comfortable with what we know, even though it's unhealthy, than doing something new, because that is like a step out of your comfort zone, or you have to stretch yourself, and everything that's different and new is a bit scary. So the awareness is so important. And actually I believe we are called to step out of that conditioning, into those waters that are unknown, because that's where our new future basically is. So what is Matt saying about like what we can do to change the pattern, or to get out of handle a relationship that is, with.
Well, Mark's message is very much about helping them find the truth of who they are. It's normal to self-doubt, because self-doubt is you using your critical thinking mind. So a lot of women who doubt themselves think there's something wrong with them, like I've got self-esteem problems, or I've got bad self-confidence or something. And, it's not necessarily true. I mean, we're in third dimensional reality. So there's a very few enlightened beings, or beings that are awakened, on our planet now. So all the rest of us that may be on the path to awakening but haven't fully awakened yet, like, Buddha or Jesus Christ or whatever, we still have an ego to deal with. So we still have some self-esteem and some self-confidence stuff going on. But mostly it's just being taught to doubt yourself. I mean, that's what narcissists do, right? They work on you over a long period of time till they get you to the point where they make you doubt yourself so much you don't know what the truth is anymore. So Mart is all about helping, empowering women to find the truth, and then empowering them to have firm boundaries, right, to actually be able to speak those firm boundaries and say no, because that's the number one test you use on a narcissist, right, to test whether they're a narcissist. You just say no. You don't defend yourself or justify your position, and you should do it really early in any relationship to find out whether the other person is going to accept you or no. Because a narcissist won't accept no. They'll start to cajole you and, oh, come on, or please, or they'll get angry, or they'll get poopy and walk away. You know what I mean? They don't like no, whereas a mature person can handle a no now and then, right? So it's about having good boundaries, and then connecting with their own inner wisdoms. Mark talks a lot about women being in their heart center, right, and really being able to put other people before themselves. I mean, there's a lot of men on the planet that can do that too, but narcissists can't, right? Everything's about them. And so their energy doesn't get up any higher than their solar plexus chakra, where it's all about, me, power over others, success, money, all the pride, ego, all of that stuff. Whereas women are in their heart chakras because we're the nurturers on the planet. We came here to, even though women who don't have children still come here with that nurturing energy, right? And women who don't have children often nurture a lot of other people around them, mother their friends and their families and all of that sort of stuff. So it's about teaching women that they are connected to spirit. They are the conduit through which the goddess comes onto the planet. And, of course, the goddess is, Mother Gaia. Everything is goddess. And the goddess used to be worshipped a lot more on the planet until, the Abrahamic religions came onto the planet about 2,000 years ago, or 3,000 years ago, when we had the Abrahamic religions and we had Christianity and Judaism and all those. And they were the ones that demoted the goddess and raised the patriarchal god. And really what we're doing on the planet now is balancing that masculine and feminine. So we have to get, we have to get men and women back on equal footing. So that's not, men being less than, I'm not, Goddess Mart's not about feminism to that extent, but just about us being equal, empowering both of us to walk side by side and be, loving and kind and compassionate towards each other, right? And find the truth for ourselves.
It's so beautiful work, what you're doing. I just wanted to say, even though you're not out there speaking to millions of people, you're working more individually. Like, I believe that as well. Like, if one person transforms, that person helps other people transform. And the ripple effects are just amazing. And we need to work there as well. So I think that's so divinely, orchestrated, how if we start to follow our purpose and be true to that, that's what we're destined to do, because it is divinely orchestrated and planned.
Well, I'll tell you how divinely orchestrated it is. When I started studying Mart more, I realised that her energy, that goddess energy, had been through all cultures, right? So she was called in other cultures, she was called things like Ninmah and Ninsurhag. In Greece, she was called Reea. And I didn't know that. Now, I wasn't born Reea. I actually changed my name to Reea, right, in 2010. So I started channeling Mart in 2007, changed my name because my name used to be Jan and I hated it, right? So I put the word out and I said to my daughters and all of my girlfriends, I'm going to change my name. What will I change my name to? And it was my daughter that said to me, you should call yourself Reea, because my name was actually Jan Marie and it was hyphenated, and my sister always used to call me Ree. And that was the only nickname I'd ever really had. So my daughter said, why don't you call yourself Reea, Mum? And I said, I love that. I'm going to do that. And then I found out that Mart, the goddess, was actually Reea in the Greek tradition. And I went, oh, my God, that's just blown me away. That is like one of those synchronistic moments where you just go, how did that happen? And I was told that it came through my daughter, because if it had have come through me, I might not have believed it. It might not have had the same impact that it did because it came through my daughter.
Oh, yeah. It's so beautiful that we get these confirmations, because sometimes we need those from spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to that thing that you mentioned before, because I think people will wonder. You and I were saying we're not in a relationship. We both haven't been in one for 10 years. And I just want to make it clear to people, like, I don't know what your story is, but my story is I'd had such bad relationships. I was very happy to be by myself. I'm a mature woman now. I've had children and I've got grandchildren, and I've done all that stuff in my life, and I'm a great believer in the fact that our higher self is guiding us where we're supposed to be. If I was meant to be in a relationship right now, I would be, and so would you, okay? But the reason I'm not in a relationship is because I put other people before myself all the time. And it's very easy for me to do that. I can't be comfortable at home unless other people are comfortable. I find it very hard to relax. And so, Mart said to me, when you can learn to put other people, you put yourself first, right, in a relationship, then you can have a relationship. And until then, it's probably better that you don't, because I wouldn't have done all the work that I've done if I was in a relationship. Everything that I've done in my life that I'm most proud of, whether it's getting university degrees, travelling overseas, raising children, starting businesses, everything, buying houses, all of that I did when I was single, not when I was in a relationship. Because when I'm in a relationship, I was totally focused on making the other person happy and living their life and doing what they wanted to do. So, that's my story, why I'm not in a relationship. I'm quite happy not to be now. So, I don't want other women to sort of think because they've been in narcissistic relationships that they can't get into a healthy relationship. They certainly can.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And we all have individual stories, and I feel like I have a match, like we're mirroring each other here, because I don't think I would have created Wisdom from North 8 years ago if I had been in a relationship, because I too focus, if I'm in a relationship, it's all about the two of us. And for me to be able to find that inner voice that told me to start to interview, there's a lot of things that needed to happen, and it has been a slow process. Like 2 years ago, I created a company. So it has really been step by step by step. And I think now I feel ready, and I haven't had my mind on finding anybody. It has been about me discovering, what do I want to do in life? What is my purpose? And my purpose is like that is above having like a relationship. Like that's more important to me than find a man and start a family. So now that
we're not imagining it, because with my last partner, I broke up with him and then I got back together. And in the period of time when I'd broken up with him, so I was a teacher then, so I already had a career and I already had a university degree and all that stuff. But I broke up with him, and that's when I trained as a life coach. And when I sort of started down this path, and then I got back together with him, and he said to me, if we had been together, I wouldn't have let you do that. Right. And I was like, what? Right? Because he would have. It's not just that they yell at you and tell you can't do something. They cajole you and oh, darling, don't do that. They've got lots of ways to manipulate you.
Yeah, and I think your work is so important, and I think my work is so important that we needed to do this, so there wasn't a room. Yeah. So, wow, this has been very interesting. I just want to ask the last questions about the darkness and the light. There seems to be like perhaps a war between the dark and the light. Well, what is your perspective on that? Because we have been speaking about narcissism, and you said that they're not in connection with our heart, which is a sign that they're not... a connection with the light.
Yeah, so I find it really interesting. So, we are in a kind of battle of light versus dark right now, but it's just because we live in third dimensional reality, which is a dimension of duality. And we have to have catalysts and challenges and shadows, right? Because they're the things that push us into transformation and change. Inherently, we're pretty lazy and we like having a nice time, and we'll lay on the couch in front of the TV and drink wine and eat chips if you let us, you know what I mean? But we know that, and I'm sure this is true of you, that all the worst things that have happened to me in my life, there's just something about me that you do something really bad to me and I might go down for a few weeks and be really blown away, and there've been times in my life where it's been longer than a few weeks, trust me, where I've got really depressed and overcome by everything that's happened to me, but I bounce back, right? And when I bounce back, I'm stronger, and I know myself to be stronger. And so by the time you get to maturity, to my age, by the time you get to that age, there's nothing that can hurt you, right? You've been through it all. And so I really think this whole narcissism, it's like Spirit says they're actually, it's part of our soul contract that narcissists come into our lives to be our teachers, right? And some of us may hate that thought, especially if we're busy being a victim because we've been abused and, we're in that state. But when you get past that, you realise, thank you, because you really did encourage me by treating me so badly. You really did help me to see who I really am. So it's all the time about, empowering and loving yourself more and getting stronger and standing up. And so that's what's happening right across the planet. I mean, how do we know? It's like Abraham always says, how do you know whether the world is like a smorgasbord and you can pick the things off it that you like, but how do you know what you like unless you know what you don't like?
Right.
So we have to go through really bad things in our lives so we can go, no, not that. That's not how I want to live. I don't like that. Right? And we learn more about ourselves and we learn more about our choices by doing that. And so that's the role that narcissism is playing on the planet, except that everything is intensifying during this period of time, right? Right, it's intensifying to push us all to the point where we're going, no, we don't want the world to be this way, right? So narcissism is like a cell or a droplet in the ocean of what's really happening on the planet. It's kind of like the individual darkness, where the bigger darkness is, multinational corporations and the 1% and politics and, all of that stuff that's going on the planet, where everything has been weaponized. Everything is weaponized. Even medicine has been weaponized. And so that narcissism is just a small aspect of that. And we know that, most politicians and heads of corporations and CEOs, a lot of them are narcissists. So narcissism works really well in the workplace, right? When it comes to making money, right? It does very well. It's just not very good when it comes to being a human being or being in relationship. So it really is a battle of, light over dark. And so that's why so many people are noticing or having relationships with narcissists. So we can see the darkness, and then we know we are light.
Right.
But I am the light and you are the light, right? Because we can see the dark.
Yeah, and I'm actually grateful for that relationship, because I've just learned so much about myself, that it's possible to lose yourself and that it's possible to find yourself again. And the respect I got afterwards was just so powerful. So I think I had that power going into Wisdom from North. Like, it's about me now. Last question. What is Maud saying that we're moving towards? Has she said anything about how this new world of shift of consciousness, you said it was about the balancing the masculine and feminine, but has she said anything more about how it will look like this new time?
Yeah, so we are collectively creating this thing that's going on globally, and it's extremely volatile because we're doing it all together. When you're creating your reality, you can get very good at that, right? You know what you want, you know how to picture it and talk positively to yourself and take the necessary steps to get where you want to go, right? That's how we work in third dimensional reality. But we're creating this thing on the planet together. So all of the people that are in the light, that know the difference between light and dark, that are in love and compassion and nurturing and peace and harmony and truth and all of that stuff, we are all joining our energies together until there's a tipping point, and then that's the way the planet's going to go. We've got to go out of where we've come from because we know that it's not working. And, a lot of really intelligent people on the planet are saying it's not sustainable. The way we've been doing everything, financial, situation, everything. And so what Mart's saying is we're going to a better place. We just have to hang on, and we just have to stay positive and not freak out and not get scared, right, about anything that's going on the planet. I mean, disconnect from the news and all of that fear-mongering and all of that stuff, and just be centered and balanced and in your own sovereignty, and just live your life in peace and harmony and truth. And the more people that do that, the more that collective energy will transform the planet.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. So where can people find you if they want help from you, or do perhaps some courses, or what is the work that you're doing? How do you help people?
So I do one-on-one sessions with people. There's a Transform Your Negative Emotions course on my website that people can hook into if they want to do that. I do have a YouTube channel with some videos on it that I've made, for my clients, just to be helpful and to get my Mart's word out there. So, going to my website, reea.com.au, and, I'd love to hear from anybody who's watching this and wants to connect with me and wants to connect with Mart's work. That would be wonderful.
Beautiful. And I'll leave the links below in the video description so you can connect with Reea there. Thank you so much. It was beautiful connecting with you, and I'm really grateful for the work you're doing for this planet and the world. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, I'm really grateful for the work you're doing too. You're doing a great job. Been watching your, rise over the years, and you're just doing some fantastic work, speaking to incredible people. I mean, this is what it takes, right? We all have to get together and talk to each other and get the word out that things can be different and the world can be a beautiful place.
Thank you for that. And thank you for watching, everybody. Much light from Norway and Australia. Bye-bye.
Bye.